Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. Your results may vary.
So you want to survive high school. Let me see if I could help you with that. I have successfully gone through 4 years of high school, and while I didn't do it perfectly, along the way I picked up some lessons and tips that I think could help you if you're already in high school or if you will be there in the future. In my eyes, there are 3 pillars of high school and your life around that time: your school life, social life, and personal life. I will split this video up into 3 parts and dedicate each one to a specific pillar that I mentioned. That's really all I need to say before we get started, so let's go. For some, dealing with academics is the easiest part of high school. For others, it could be the hardest. This section is pretty encompassing, but I'll start with actual classes. It can be tempting to overload your schedule with as much AP and honors classes as you can, but I would strongly advise against that. Never take a challenging class simply because you want to put it on your transcript. Instead, consider this alternative. Take harder classes in subjects that are your strengths and slightly easier classes for subjects that you are weaker in. The worst thing is a tough class in a subject you don't enjoy, so try to avoid it at all costs. Trust me, if you didn't take an AP class or honors class in one subject, it will not ruin your chances. On the topic of classes, finding the right ones can be equally as challenging. However, you have a ton of resources at your disposal, and the best one is your fellow classmates. Don't be afraid to ask upperclassmen what classes they've taken, what they've liked and disliked. I doubt anyone would be unwilling to share some advice with you. Before I move on, for people who don't like school in general, stick around for the personal life section. I think you'll get the most out of that part. Now I'm going to shift to activities, or extracurriculars. I kind of hate that word, but anyways, participating outside of the classroom is important, but can also be really enjoyable. Similar to the advice I gave for classes, do not commit to something that you do not enjoy simply because you want to tack it onto your transcript. There are 3 ways to find some solid activities to do by asking yourself these questions. Does the activity mirror an interest or hobby you have? Is the activity related to one of your favorite subjects? Does the activity mirror a career that you might be interested in for the future? If you answered yes to any of these questions, the activity is probably worth trying out. Finally, let's talk about sports. A lot of things come with doing sports in high school. Meeting people, time commitments, the emotions of winning and losing. However, I think the most important detail often goes unnoticed: exercise. Exercise is so essential to not just being healthy, but also happy. Sports is a great way to do that while also being able to compete with others and build relationships. If you do not play a sport though, make sure to figure out some form of exercise plan to stay fit. We all know gym class doesn't really cut it. Trust me, getting a consistent amount of exercise during the week will 100% make your life better. I think I've talked enough about school, so let's move on to the next piece of high school, your social life. For me, having a social life was probably the most difficult part of high school. Well, actually, I didn't really have one at all. But I'm not saying that for pity. I'm saying it because through my shortcomings, I have learned some valuable lessons that I would like to pass on to you. Before I begin, let me start by defining social life. This does not mean being popular, because if you didn't know already, popularity is a facade that washes away after graduation. Having a social life just means that you have a solid group of people who you can spend time with and lean on during your high school career. One reason that I failed with this during high school was that I never made the first move. In 4 years, I never asked anyone to hang out or go somewhere. Never. Ask yourself that same question. Also, if the answer is yes, ask yourself why. For me, it was primarily because I didn't think people wanted to hang out with me. But then I realized something. I took a step back and said, if I feel this way because I do not think the people want to hang out with me, what do they think if I never invite them to hang out? More likely than not, they probably have similar feelings. So, take the first step and everyone will be happy. But what if you do not have people to take that step with? What is the best way to meet and interact with new people? This can also be quite hard, but you have to do your best to share yourself to the people around you. Your classmates might know a lot less about you than you realize, so try to share your interests, opinions, and thoughts as much as possible. But try not to be too overbearing to people, because that will put them off to you. In summary, maintaining a social life is all about effort and being active. No one can keep up your social life but you, and if you are passive, it will disappear. So, get out there and go meet some people. With that said, we've talked about what to do in school and in your social life, but what about your personal life? Let's see how you can fill your spare time. This section of the video can go in a lot of different directions, but I am going to try to be as focused as possible when I give each piece of advice. Firstly, having free time for yourself is crucial to being happy in high school. You need to have those moments removed from anything related to school or friends. But what do those moments look like exactly? Obviously, there is no right way to spend your personal time, but here are a few ideas. Try to find and cultivate at least one hobby that has nothing to do with school. Again, this can go in a lot of different directions, but the important detail is that you get enjoyment out of it. Reading, watching movies, building models, making content, just creating anything could work. A huge plus is if this hobby feeds your creative side. I feel like creativity is something that can be lost depending on what path you take in school, so making sure you use your creativity at times will prevent you from that. Secondly, dedicate time to do nothing. I struggled with this during high school, but you should sit at least 10 to 15 minutes a day just to sit and literally do nothing. No music, videos, phones, food, nothing. Take a break from all the stimulations and distractions around you and relax. A great time to do this would be right when you get home for the day. On the same note, finding a method to de-stress is essential to not becoming overwhelmed over long periods of working. Taking a walk, meditating, and journaling are just a couple of ways to relax yourself from the stressors of school and the world. People who do not like school, I didn't forget about you. If you really hate school, and I definitely don't blame you for doing so, then consider this. Take easy classes, but at least try not to fail them. Beyond that, in your free time, search for alternative paths for yourself after graduation. Whether you want to start working after school or learn new skills, set yourself up for success without having to go to college. My final and arguably most important piece of advice is this: prioritize your mental health. I will be dedicating an entire video to this topic next week because I have quite a bit to say about why we need to normalize mental health as a whole. But back to what I said. Make sure that you are keeping your mind in check. Let me explain one way to make sure of that. A lot of times, mental struggles originate from a path of thoughts leading to a depressive state. In this scenario, your thoughts, whether they are about real or imaginary things, have power over you and control your emotions. In order to combat this, get your thoughts out of your head in any way you can. An easy way to do this would be talking to someone, but if you don't want to do that, you could write them down in a safe place. Doing this will cause these thoughts to lose their worth because they cease from being huge problems in your head to just words on a page. Try it out. Hopefully it will work. Before I go, I want you to remember this. Have fun and enjoy your childhood. If you are in a high school or you're going to attend it, that means you're still a kid. I've graduated and I'm still a kid. Just don't always take everything too seriously and try to make your time worth it. Also, if you don't enjoy high school, don't worry. I didn't either. You have the rest of your life to figure out what you enjoy. If you made it to this point, thank you so much, and I hope I made it worth your time. Please leave a like if you enjoyed, and maybe want a part 2 of this, because I could definitely make one. Also, consider subscribing if you're interested in future uploads. This has been Dark Horse, and I will see you in the next video.